Before we begin, smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and comment below if you think you can handle the truth. You won't want to miss a second of this story. The night was unusually silent in the quiet suburban streets of Riverdale, a town that had always prided itself on safety. Streetlights flickered as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a chill that had nothing to do with the February air. Detective Marcus Hale parked his unmarked car at the edge of the cul-de-sac, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He had been called here around midnight, another routine call that promised to be anything but routine. The house at the end of the street was dark, but the front door had been forced open. Splintered wood and glass littered the porch like the remnants of a violent storm. Hale's heart thumped in his chest. He had seen plenty of crime scenes in his 15 years, but there was something about this one that didn't sit right. It smelled of fear before he even stepped inside. Inside, the living room was chaos. Furniture overturned, family photos smashed against the walls, and a dark stain spreading across the cream carpet. It was a scene ripped straight from a nightmare. Hale crouched near the stain, careful not to contaminate evidence. Blood. Not just any blood. It was fresh, warm, and unmistakably human. Then he saw her. 28-year-old Emily Carter, a mother of two, lay crumpled on the floor, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. Her life had been violently torn away, but the way she had been posed, it was deliberate, calculated. A signature. Someone wanted a message sent. Hale's stomach turned. He had dealt with robbery, assault, domestic violence. But this felt personal. Hale's partner, Detective Linda Vargas, arrived moments later. Her steps were silent, practiced, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her nerves. "Marcus, you seeing what I'm seeing?" She whispered. "Yeah," he said grimly. "This isn't random. Someone wanted her found like this." The investigation began immediately. Neighbors were interviewed, surveillance footage was checked, and forensic teams combed the house for any clue. But there was nothing obvious, no signs of forced entry besides the front door, no fingerprints beyond the victims, no signs of struggle outside the house. Whoever did this knew exactly how to leave a scene clean. As Hale and Vargas dug deeper, they learned about Emily's life. She wasn't just a mother, she had a high-profile job in corporate finance, known for her sharp mind and determination. But with success often comes enemies, and she had more than a few. Disgruntled co-workers, a bitter ex-husband, even an anonymous online stalker. Every lead seemed plausible, and every lead seemed dangerous. Then came the first break in the case. Hale noticed a small envelope tucked under the sofa cushions, something easy to overlook. Inside, a single piece of paper, a photograph of Emily's husband, Mark Carter, taken while he was leaving a late-night bar 2 weeks ago. On the back, a single message in red ink: "You should have paid attention." Vargas frowned. This isn't just a threat, it's a warning. And it's personal. Hale nodded. He could feel the weight of the case pressing down on him. Every detail mattered, and yet the puzzle seemed impossible to solve. They returned to Emily's office the next day, hoping to find clues her personal life hadn't revealed. Her cubicle was immaculate, but her computer told a different story. Emails from anonymous addresses, unusual bank transactions, and one cryptic message that caught Hale's attention: "You're next if you cross me." It was becoming clear that Emily's death was not random. Someone had been planning this. And whoever it was, they were meticulous, patient, and dangerously clever. Hale couldn't shake the feeling that there was more lurking beneath the surface. Then, a tip came in from an informant in the area, a man known only as Rico. He claimed to have seen a black SUV circling Emily's neighborhood in the days leading up to the murder. A vehicle registered under a fake name, but with a history of being linked to organized crime. Hale and Vargas tracked the vehicle to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was the kind of place that smelled of rust, oil, and decay. Inside, boxes of surveillance equipment, lists of names, and photographs of Emily and her family were meticulously organized. Whoever did this had been watching her for months, maybe even years. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. In the corner of the warehouse, hidden behind a stack of crates, Hale found a notebook. Flipping through its pages, he realized with growing horror that it wasn't just Emily's life that was being tracked. It was an entire network of potential victims. And at the very back of the book, a note, addressed to Mark Carter: "Step closer and you'll be next. The game has begun." The gravity of the situation hit Hale and Vargas like a punch to the gut. This was bigger than a murder. It was a warning, a game, and someone was orchestrating it from the shadows. Every step they took now was being watched. Every decision mattered. And yet, the detectives were determined to follow the trail wherever it led, no matter the danger. The tension in Riverdale was palpable. The media swarmed the neighborhood, friends and family demanded answers, and the community was paralyzed with fear. Yet the killer remained unseen, leaving only hints and threats that kept everyone on edge. It was a race against time, a battle of wits with stakes that no one could afford to underestimate. And then, just when it seemed the case might start to unravel, Hale received an unexpected call. It was from a colleague in another state, a lead that seemed minor at first, but would change everything. Someone had been spotted with Emily's personal belongings, far away from Riverdale. Hale's pulse quickened. "Linda, pack up. We're leaving tonight. Something tells me this is about to get worse." Vargas looked at him, eyes wide. "Worse than this?" Hale didn't answer. He just stared at the warehouse, the notebook, and the chilling message. Whatever game they were playing, it was far from over. And deep down, Hale knew this case would haunt him long after the night ended. As they drove into the darkness, the wind howling around them, Hale's mind raced through every clue, every photograph, every threat. And then, just as they reached the outskirts of town, his phone buzzed with a message that made his blood run cold. "You think you're close, but you have no idea. Open the basement door." And with those words, everything changed. If you think this chapter was intense, wait until you see what happens next. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss the shocking discoveries in Chapter 2. Before we continue, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and leave a comment, because the truth you're about to see will haunt you long after this video ends. The early morning fog clung to the streets of Riverdale as Detective Marcus Hale and Linda Vargas drove silently toward the next lead. Neither spoke, both were lost in thought. The message about the basement door, sent to Hale's phone the night before, weighed heavily on his mind. It was the kind of message that made him question everything he thought he knew about the case. As they pulled up to the outskirts of the next town, the faint outline of a modest suburban home appeared through the mist. According to the tip, Emily's personal belongings had been spotted here. Hale's heart sank. Every step they had taken since finding her body seemed to spiral into more darkness, and this house promised more than they could imagine. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. The air smelled faintly of lavender and dust, and sunlight filtering through half-closed blinds cast long shadows across the worn wooden floor. Hale and Vargas moved carefully, scanning every room. Then in the master bedroom closet, they found it, a small duffel bag, zippered shut, but heavy with contents. Hale opened it slowly, expecting documents, maybe a laptop. Instead, what he saw made his stomach drop. It was Emily's most personal items, family photos, a diary, and a child's stuffed toy, worn from constant love. But among these, tucked in the corner, was a video camera. Vargas picked it up, her hands trembling slightly. She recorded something. Look at the timestamp. Just a few days before it happened. Hale's fingers shook as he powered the camera. The screen flickered to life, showing Emily's face, her eyes bright, her voice steady but layered with a fear that chilled them to the bone. "If anyone finds this," she began, voice quivering slightly, "know that I tried to warn everyone. There's someone watching me. Someone who wants to destroy my life, and anyone close to me." The detectives watched in stunned silence. Her words weren't just a warning, they were a plea. Her diary, later found hidden beneath the bed, confirmed their worst fears. She had been aware that someone had been following her for months, leaving subtle threats, anonymous messages, and unexplained calls in the dead of night. Every entry described her growing paranoia, the sleepless nights, and the fear that someone she trusted could be involved. And then came the most heartbreaking discovery. In her last diary entry, Dated just hours before her death, Emily wrote. I think Mark knows something. I want to trust him, but the look in his eyes tonight, it felt like he's hiding. If anything happens to me, I need someone to know the truth. Someone has to protect the kids. Hale felt a chill run down his spine. Mark Carter had been cooperative, distraught, and grief-stricken. But now doubt crept in. Could he be involved? Or was Emily's fear simply the result of knowing too much about someone dangerous? As they processed the scene, a soft whimper drew their attention. Hale and Vargas followed the sound to the basement, a door slightly ajar, creaking with every gust of wind. The message from last night echoed in Hale's mind, "Open the basement door." Inside, they found a room that made their blood run cold. It was set up like a surveillance hub, monitors displaying grainy images of Emily's home, her office, and even the children's school. Photographs of her family, painstakingly labeled with dates and times, covered the walls. And then, on a small chair in the center of the room, was Mark Carter, bound, bruised, and terrified. Hale rushed to him, cutting the ropes. "Mark, it's us. You're safe now." Mark shook violently, tears streaking his face. "They're everywhere. I didn't do anything, I swear. I didn't know what to do. They said if I tried to go to the police, they'd come for the kids next." Vargas held him tightly as Hale surveyed the room. Every piece of evidence pointed to a predator who had meticulously planned every move. This wasn't just a murder, it was psychological torture. Someone wanted to instill fear, to break Emily and anyone connected to her. The detectives knew time was running out. The perpetrator had to be nearby, orchestrating every move. They began tracing the signals from the surveillance equipment, hoping to catch a clue that would lead them to the person behind the chaos. Hours turned into a tense chase. Every street, every alley, every quiet house became a potential threat. And then, a breakthrough. One of the cameras was transmitting a live feed from an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. Hale's pulse quickened. They arrived to find a building swallowed by darkness. The kind of place where shadows moved like living creatures. Hale's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing a labyrinth of hallways lined with boxes, cameras, and files. And then, in the far corner, a figure moved, someone watching them, someone aware they were being followed. Hale called out, "Step into the light. We know you're there." No response. Just silence, heavy and suffocating. And then, a sound that froze them both, a faint click of a camera shutter. The figure emerged. Not masked. Not anonymous. It was someone Hale had never expected, someone who had been in plain sight all along. And the chilling realization hit them both. This wasn't just about Emily. This was about control, power, and vengeance, and the mastermind was closer than anyone could have imagined. Hale swallowed hard. "Linda, this is bigger than anything we've ever faced. And the longer we wait, the more people are in danger." Vargas's eyes met his, wide and fearful. "Then we finish this. No matter what it takes." But just as they stepped closer, the lights in the complex flickered, and a single note fluttered to the ground at their feet. Hale picked it up, heart racing. The words, scrawled in crimson ink, made their blood run cold. "You think you're ready, but the truth is far worse. Open the next door, if you dare." And in that moment, they realized that every secret Emily had tried to hide, every threat she had endured, was only the beginning. The story they had uncovered was far darker, far more twisted than they had ever imagined. And the choices they made next would determine who survived, and who became the next victim. The final
Team, we're live.
revelation.
Execute now.
Before we
Confirmed,
begin,
standing
if
by.
you've been
Copy.
following
Moving to
this
stations.
journey,
Go. Monitor
hit
feeds.
subscribe and smash that like button. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. And stay until the end. It will change everything you thought you knew about this case. The
That's
night
the police.
air was thick
What
with
do we
tension
do?
as Detective
We can't
Marcus
stay
Hale
here.
and Linda
Let's
Vargas
go.
returned to the industrial complex. Every step they took echoed through the empty hallways, a reminder that danger lurked in every shadow. The note from the previous chapter, "Open the next door, if you dare," was still clutched in Hale's hand, its crimson letters burned into his mind. They approached the door at the far end of the corridor. It was old, splintered, and foreboding. Hale's hand shook as he reached for the handle, but Vargas placed a steadying hand on his arm. "Whatever's behind this door, we face it together," she whispered. Inside, the room was dimly lit, but the scene made their blood run cold. Rows of photographs, meticulously arranged, showed victims spanning months, even years. Some faces were familiar from news reports, others were names that had slipped through the cracks. But the most disturbing sight was in the center, Emily Carter, alive, or rather, a recording of her, but one that had been made while she was terrified and pleading for her life. Hale felt his chest tighten. Whoever orchestrated this had power, influence, and patience beyond comprehension. And then a voice, smooth, chilling, almost conversational, cut through the darkness. "Detectives Hale and Vargas, welcome. I've been expecting you." They turned to see a figure step from the shadows. Not masked. Controlled. Someone who radiated authority and menace at the same time. The killer. And to their shock, it was someone from Emily's inner circle, someone they had trusted. "Why?" Hale demanded, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. The figure smiled. "But because power, fear, and obsession often hide behind the faces we trust most. Emily saw the truth. That's why she had to go. And now, you are part of my story too." Vargas's hands clenched into fists. "You won't get away with this." The figure chuckled, a sound that made the hairs on their necks stand. "Already I have. Every step you took brought you here. Every clue you followed was planted by me. And soon, the world will see exactly how fragile life can be." Hale and Vargas lunged forward, but the killer moved with impossible speed, disappearing into a hidden corridor. The detectives pursued, the sound of their footsteps echoing, the fear of the unknown pressing against them like a physical weight. The chase led them to a basement, hidden beneath a false floor. And there, the truth revealed itself in a way that left Hale speechless. Multiple screens showed live feeds of locations they had never even considered. People they knew, people they had sworn to protect, were all being watched, every moment of their lives catalogued by someone obsessed with control. Then, a live feed focused on Emily's children, asleep in their room. The killer's voice, now on a speaker system, filled the basement. "Protect them if you dare, or they become the next lesson in fear." Vargas froze, a chill running through her. Hale's mind raced. They had to act fast, but the killer had anticipated their every move. Every door they opened, every hallway they pursued, led them deeper into the labyrinth of terror. It was then that Hale noticed a small, almost hidden panel on the wall. Inside, a stack of documents, confessions, and evidence, everything the killer had meticulously recorded. Names, dates, locations, even plans for future targets. This was the key, the blueprint to bring the entire operation down. But taking it wouldn't be simple. The killer had rigged the building with alarms, cameras, and traps designed to delay, distract, and terrify. Hale and Vargas moved carefully, step by step, until they finally had the documents in hand. And just as they thought they were safe, a loud crash echoed behind them. The killer had returned, and this time, there was no room for negotiation. The confrontation was brutal, tense, and personal. Every move mattered, every second counted. Hale and Vargas fought not just for justice, but for the lives of the innocent caught in this web. Finally, in a desperate struggle, Hale managed to subdue the killer long enough for Vargas to call the authorities. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every passing second. The killer, restrained and defeated, revealed one final, shocking twist. She knew the truth about me all along. And she tried to protect everyone. But some secrets are too dangerous to survive. Hale stared at the restrained figure, realization dawning. Emily's fear, her diary entries, her warnings, they hadn't been paranoia. They had been a roadmap to the truth, a guide for anyone brave enough to follow it. By dawn, the authorities had arrived. The killer was taken into custody, the evidence secured, and the immediate threat neutralized. But the emotional aftermath was heavy. Emily was gone. Her children, traumatized, had survived. Mark Carter, shaken to the core, had lost the woman he loved and faced the horrifying truth of the world they lived in. Hale and Vargas stood outside the industrial complex, the sun rising behind them. A cold wind blew, carrying away the echoes of the night's horrors. They had won the battle, but the war, the knowledge of human cruelty, obsession, and darkness, would haunt them forever. As they drove back into town, Hale's phone buzzed with a new message. He stared at it, stomach twisting. It was from an unknown number. You thought it was over. But every end is just another beginning. Vargas looked over, her eyes wide. Marcus, do you think it's finished? He shook his head slowly. Some stories never really end. If you think this story shook you, remember, truth is often darker than fiction. Hit subscribe, like, and share, because the next untold story is already waiting, and it's closer than you think.